there is a place in your imagination that you go to. And for so many generations of people, it's Sesame Street, because that's where you're accepted. That's where you're helped. That's where you laugh in a way that you probably haven't laughed in a really long time. And that's what Sesame Street is. It's about happiness.
Here we go, very quiet. 3, 2, 1. And action.
What do you think makes Sesame Street so appealing to kids? I hate it myself.
Right off the bat, it really did feel like a world that you wanted to jump into the TV and be part of. And I know I'm not the only one that felt that way. I mean, I think it really touched all kids like that.
I'm an enormous Sesame Street fan and Muppet fan, and I was 100% convinced that I absolutely knew everything. Grover and I share a birthday, so of course, I'm good with the whole set of them. And I was absolutely blown away by how much I didn't know.
Everybody talks about the impact Sesame Street had on an educational level. And of course, that's absolutely right. It was groundbreaking. It was using television to educate, which was absolutely new and exciting. And everybody talks about that. But this documentary, Street Gang, really focuses on the social times that the show was created in, and it also has a major focus on the creative explosion that happened at that time with people like Jim Henson and Joe Raposo and John Stone and Joan Gans Cooney and Dulcie Singer and all of those creative people that kind of came together and created this marvelous show. I always make the analogy that the Beatles are all brilliant separately, but together they created genius.
This was an experiment.
Children were watching a tremendous amount of television.
So why not see if it could educate them?
What she is doing is what television would do if it loved people instead of trying to sell to people.
That's an amazing line, isn't it?
That was the at the time, the chairman of the FCC. What makes that statement so powerful is the fact that for the very first time, you had educational content that was blended with amazing improv comedy.
How many lines do you have? 3. Well, try to get the first one better.
That was blended with songs that you'll never forget for your entire life, and the first interracial cast on television.
Beautiful children will grow up and make the whole world beautiful. Right on.
You put one or two of those things together and, that's a big deal. You put all of those things together and that's when you get a legacy.
When I spoke to Sonia, she talked about when she was a kid growing up in the South Bronx, she would watch TV and it was Leave It to Beaver. It was these white families with picket fences and squeaky clean white kids, which had nothing to do with the world she saw when she looked out her window. Sesame Street broke through that.
When you're growing up and you don't see yourself in the media, then you get the feeling that you're not part of this culture. Television has so much power of doing that.
And that's true. Sadly, performers half my age were still saying the same thing, that they hadn't seen themselves represented on television, and what a loss that was. And so we've come some distance, we've come a ways. There certainly are more people of color on television, but certainly not enough.
Looking at, through the lens of a child, at the unique experience that children are having and helping them cope with what they're seeing. We need resources as a society to be able to talk to our kids about what they're seeing and help them understand.
Not only teaching them how to count and how to read, but teaching them about social justice and teaching them about the world around them and peace and all of these really, really big ideas. And so for me, the most important message here is the power of art to change the world.
It was chaos, but it was the chaos of people dedicated to a real ideal, believing something could be done and having the will to do it. That's what Sesame Street's about.